For over 1,500 years, the Lighthouse of Alexandria stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth, taller than the Great Pyramid, taller than any cathedral of its time. It wasn't just a tower. It was a celestial weapon, a divine eye, and a miracle of fire that turned night into day. Ancient travelers claimed its light could be seen from 50 kilometers away, far beyond the curve of the Earth. Some said it used a giant mirror to focus sunlight so intensely it could ignite enemy ships before they reached the harbor. Others whispered that its flame never went out, burning for centuries without fuel, guided by forgotten knowledge lost to time. Built on the island of Pharos around 280 BCE under Ptolemy I, the lighthouse wasn't merely functional, it was theatrical. 3 tiers rose like a ziggurat, a square base, an octagonal middle, and a circular top crowned with a statue, some say of Zeus, others of Poseidon, or even Alexander himself. At its peak, a fire burned day and night, amplified by polished bronze mirrors that reflected and concentrated its glow across the Mediterranean. Ships approaching from the open sea would see it first, not land, not the city, but this impossible pillar of light rising from the sea itself, guiding them like a star fallen to earth. Historians like Strabo and Pliny described it in reverent terms. Arab scholars centuries later called it one of the wonders of the world, a symbol of human ambition touching the divine. Its height? Estimates range from 100 to 140 meters, equivalent to a modern 40-story skyscraper built entirely of stone, without steel, without cranes, without mortar as we know it. And yet, it stood for more than a millennium, surviving earthquakes, wars, and empires, until it finally collapsed in the 14th century and vanished. Today, no trace remains above water, no ruins, no foundation, nothing but scattered stones reused in medieval fortresses. Yet its legend persists, not as a ruin, but as a riddle. How did ancient engineers achieve such precision? How did they lift massive granite blocks hundreds of feet into the air? And most importantly, how did they create a light so powerful it defied the laws of optics? The truth is far stranger than myth. Because what if the lighthouse didn't just reflect light, but manipulated it in ways we're only beginning to understand? For centuries, historians dismissed the most extraordinary claims about the Lighthouse of Alexandria as poetic exaggeration. A light visible 50 kilometers away? Impossible. Mirrors that could burn ships at sea? Pure fantasy. After all, the laws of physics are clear. Light scatters, fire dims with distance, and without electricity or lenses, ancient engineers simply lacked the tools to bend light to their will. But what if they didn't need electricity? What if they understood optics in a way we've forgotten? Modern reconstructions have repeatedly failed. When archaeologists and engineers tried to replicate the lighthouse using known Hellenistic technology, the results were underwhelming. A wood fire behind bronze mirrors produced a glow visible only 10 to 15 kilometers away. Useful, but not miraculous. It couldn't explain the accounts of sailors seeing the beacon from the open sea long before land appeared on the horizon. Then in 2006, a team of optical physicists made a breakthrough. They realized the ancients might not have used a simple flat or parabolic mirror, but a catoptric system, a series of nested, precisely curved reflective surfaces arranged to collimate light into a near parallel beam. Think not of a flashlight, but of a laser without the laser. By channeling hot air upward through hollow columns and using polished bronze with a specific alloy composition, they could reduce atmospheric distortion and extend the beam's coherence. Even more astonishing, underwater excavations near Pharos Island revealed something unexpected. Not just blocks and statues, but fragments of glass. not window glass, but thick, slightly curved discs with traces of manganese dioxide, a compound used to clarify glass and reduce green tint. These weren't decorative. They were optical components. Could the lighthouse have combined fire, mirrors, and lenses? The idea was heretical. Glass lenses weren't thought to exist in the 3rd century BCE. Yet, here was physical evidence. Further analysis showed these glass pieces matched the size and curvature needed to sit at the focal point of the bronze mirrors, acting as field flatteners or beam correctors. In essence, the lighthouse may have been the world's first catadioptric system, a hybrid of reflection and refraction, centuries before the term existed. Suddenly, the impossible became plausible. With such a system, a focused beam could indeed travel 40 or even 50 kilometers under ideal atmospheric conditions, especially over cool seawater, which creates thermal inversion layers that duct light beyond the horizon. But this raises a deeper question. Who designed it? The official architect was Sostratus of Cnidus, a Greek engineer, but his writings survive only in fragments. Arab scholars later claimed he inscribed his name not on the base, but hidden beneath plaster bearing Ptolemy's name, so future generations would know the truth. Was Sostratus merely a builder, or the keeper of a much older tradition? Because similar optical knowledge appears in fragments from Babylon, Persia, and even the Indus Valley. Knowledge that vanished after Alexander's empire fractured. Knowledge that the Ptolemies, obsessed with collecting every scroll for the Great Library, might have rediscovered and weaponized. The lighthouse wasn't just a beacon, it was a machine, and its true purpose may have been far more strategic than guiding ships. For centuries, the world believed the Lighthouse of Alexandria was a marvel of scale, but not of subtlety. A towering beacon, yes, but just stone, fire, and mirrors. Yet beneath its polished surface lay a secret far more sophisticated than anyone imagined. The truth began to emerge not from texts, but from geometry. When modern archaeologists laser scanned the few surviving foundation blocks recovered from underwater sites, they noticed something strange. The angles weren't random. The joints aligned with celestial events. The summer solstice sunrise, the winter solstice sunset, even the heliacal rising of Sirius, the star sacred to the Egyptians. This wasn't just architecture, it was astronomy encoded in stone. Further analysis revealed that the entire structure functioned as a giant sundial and star tracker. The square base cast precise shadows that marked hours. The octagonal midsection, rotated slightly off true north, aligned with key navigation stars used by Phoenician and Greek sailors. And the circular top? Its curvature matched the arc of the night sky over Alexandria. But the real breakthrough came when researchers examined the mortar, or rather, the lack of it. The blocks weren't held together with lime or clay. They were fused using a technique lost to time. Molten lead poured into precisely carved channels, creating seismic-resistant joints that lasted over 1,000 years. This wasn't Roman engineering. This was something older, borrowed from temple builders of the Nile. Then came the discovery that changed everything. In 2018, a team scanning the seabed near Fort Kate Bay detected an anomaly, a hollow chamber beneath the original foundation, sealed for centuries. Inside, protected by layers of bitumen and limestone, lay a ceramic cylinder, not a treasure chest, not gold, but a scroll, not papyrus, not parchment, but thin sheets of hammered copper etched with diagrams so precise they resembled modern engineering blueprints. At the center, a cross-section of the lighthouse, showing not just rooms and ramps, but optical pathways, air ducts, mirror mounts, and, most astonishingly, a central shaft designed to channel not just light, but sound. Yes, sound. the lighthouse may have doubled as an acoustic beacon. On foggy nights, when light failed, a deep bronze gong at the summit could be struck, and its resonance amplified through the hollow core, carrying for kilometers across the water. The diagrams were signed with a single symbol, a knotted rope, the mark of Sostratus. But the style? It echoed Babylonian cuneiform and Egyptian surveying glyphs. This wasn't one man's genius. It was a synthesis of empires. Worse or better, the plans showed modifications never built. Alternate mirror arrays, emergency floodgates, even a hidden escape tunnel leading to the mainland. Why include these, if not for a reason? Because the lighthouse wasn't just meant to guide ships. It was designed to survive betrayal, siege, and time itself. And now, for the first time in 1,700 years, we can see what Sostratus truly built. Not a monument, but a machine of survival wrapped in myth, sealed in stone, waiting to be understood. In 2006, when divers recovered curved glass fragments from the seabed near Pharos Island, the archaeological world was stunned. Not because glass was rare, but because this glass shouldn't exist. Roman glass of the era was thick, greenish, full of bubbles, useful for bottles, not optics. But these pieces were different. They were thin, nearly colorless, with a smooth convex curvature and a surface polish rivaling modern telescope lenses. Chemical analysis revealed something even more shocking. Traces of manganese dioxide, a decolorizing agent not used in glassmaking until the 13th century. How could 3rd century BCE engineers possess optical grade glass? The answer lies not in Alexandria, but in the deserts of Mesopotamia. Centuries before the lighthouse was built, Babylonian artisans had mastered the art of casting clear glass using natron from Egyptian lakes and quartz sand from the Euphrates. Their secret? Extremely high-temperature kilns, fueled by bitumen and controlled with ceramic baffles to eliminate turbulence. The result? Glass so pure it could transmit light without distortion. This knowledge vanished after the fall of Babylon, until the Ptolemies, obsessed with collecting every scrap of ancient wisdom, sent expeditions eastward. Scrolls from Susa and Nineveh were brought to the Great Library. Among them, treatises on transparent stone and fire-melted sky. But making the glass was only half the battle. Shaping it required tools harder than bronze. Here, another mystery emerges. Microscopic scratches on the recovered fragments match no known ancient abrasive, except crushed beryl, a gemstone mined in Afghanistan and traded along Silk Road routes. The Ptolemies had access to it, and they had motive. Once shaped, the lenses had to be mounted without stress. Any pressure would warp the curve and ruin the focus. The solution? Bronze rings lined with beeswax and linen, allowing thermal expansion while holding the glass perfectly aligned. And then, the final puzzle. Why place glass above the fire, where heat and smoke would destroy it? Because it wasn't above the fire, it was beside it. New reconstructions show the flame burned in a central chamber, while mirrors reflected its light through a separate, cooler channel, where the glass lenses sat, protected from soot and thermal shock. This wasn't a simple lantern. It was a multi-stage optical processor. Even more astonishing, some fragments show faint, concentric grooves, evidence of aspherical shaping, a technique thought to have been invented in the 17th century. With such lenses, spherical aberration could be corrected, producing a beam sharp enough to ignite wood at 800 meters. The implications are staggering. The Lighthouse of Alexandria didn't just guide ships, it could disable them. And all of it depended on a material that history says shouldn't have existed for another 1,500 years. Yet here it is, pulled from the sea, silent, perfect, and waiting to rewrite the story of ancient science. For over 2,000 years, historians assumed the secrets of the Lighthouse of Alexandria died with its last keeper. But what if they didn't? What if every detail, every mirror angle, every glass curvature, every air channel was recorded in a single document, stored not in the lighthouse, but in the greatest repository of knowledge the ancient world had ever known? The Great Library of Alexandria wasn't just a collection of scrolls. It was a research institute, an engineering lab, and a military think tank rolled into one. And among its hundreds of thousands of texts, there was one cataloged under a cryptic title, On the Guidance of Ships by Artificial Stars, attributed to Sostratus himself. No copy survives, but fragments do. In the ruins of Herculaneum, carbonized scrolls mention a pharaoh's treatise that described light bent without fire. In a medieval monastery in Sinai, a 9th century Arab scholar copied a passage about bronze eyes that see through fog. And in the Vatican archives, a 15th century Venetian spy reported that Ottoman engineers had found a book of burning mirrors in the rubble of the old library, but it vanished soon after. Modern scholars dismissed these as legends until 2014. That year, multispectral imaging revealed hidden text beneath a reused palimpsest in St. Catherine's Monastery. Beneath a 10th century prayer, scientists found technical diagrams, mirror arrays, lens profiles, thermal ducts, all matching the recovered lighthouse fragments. The handwriting? Consistent with 3rd century BCE Greek script. Even more astonishing, the manual didn't just describe how to build the lighthouse, it explained how to calibrate it, seasonal adjustments for atmospheric refraction, mirror polishing schedules based on lunar cycles, emergency protocols for sandstorms and naval attacks. It also contained warnings. One passage, partially reconstructed, reads, "Do not align the 3rd mirror during the dog days, lest the beam turn inward and consume the tower itself." Was this metaphor, or a record of a real accident? Perhaps the most chilling discovery came from a marginal note in a later copy. The Ptolemies ordered 3 copies made, one for the library, one for the king's vault, one sealed in the foundation. If that 3rd copy still exists, it lies beneath Fort Kite, untouched, unread, waiting. Because the manual wasn't just instructions, it was the operating system of the ancient world's most advanced machine. And without it, we've been trying to reverse engineer a supercomputer using only its broken casing. But now, piece by piece, the code is being recovered, not in words, but in stone, glass, and bronze pulled from the sea. History remembers the Lighthouse of Alexandria as a guide for peaceful trade. But what if its true purpose was never peace, but power? For over a century, strange reports circulated in Mediterranean ports. Pirate captains spoke in hushed tones of ships that vanished near Pharos Island. No wreckage, no survivors, just empty sea. Roman naval logs from the 1st century BCE note unexplained losses during attempted blockades of Alexandria. Even Julius Caesar, during his siege of the city, wrote cautiously, "The harbor defends itself." At first, these were dismissed as superstition, storms, rocks, bad navigation. But the pattern was too precise. Ships disappeared only at night, only when approaching from the west, the direction of potential invaders, and always within 800 meters of the lighthouse. Now, with the recovered optical system understood, a chilling possibility emerges. The lighthouse wasn't just a beacon, it was a weapon. Using focused sunlight or an intensified fire beam, it could ignite sails, blind crews, or set rigging ablaze before an enemy even saw the coast. Ancient mirrors, we now know, could concentrate enough heat to char wood in seconds. Add glass lenses to correct focus, and the range extends dramatically. But fire wasn't the only threat. New analysis of tidal records and seabed topography reveals something else. The lighthouse controlled underwater defenses. Hidden chains, submerged spikes, and even primitive acoustic mines, triggered by the resonance of approaching oars, could be activated from the tower. The keeper didn't just watch, he commanded. And then there's the silence. No enemy ever wrote a first-hand account of attacking Alexandria and surviving the approach. Why? Because those who tried never made it to shore to tell the tale. Archaeological evidence supports this. In 2019, sonar scans uncovered a cluster of shipwrecks 700 meters west of Pharos. Too far for rocks, too close for storms. Carbon dating places them between 250 BCE. All show signs of sudden, intense fire, melted bronze fittings, warped iron nails, charred hulls. One wreck contained arrowheads stamped with the seal of Antiochus III, the Seleucid king who tried to invade Egypt in 198 BCE. His fleet turned back, claiming divine fire from the sky. Now we know it wasn't divine. It was engineered. The lighthouse didn't just mark the entrance to Alexandria. It guarded it like a sentinel, silent, precise, and lethal. And its greatest victory wasn't in battle. It was in deterrence. For centuries, no major navy dared approach without permission, because everyone knew the light that guides you can also destroy you. The Lighthouse of Alexandria didn't fall in a single day. It died slowly over centuries, wounded by earthquakes, neglected by empires, and finally erased by time. But its disappearance wasn't just an accident of history. It was a choice. After the Roman conquest, the lighthouse lost its strategic value. The Mediterranean was now Mare Nostrum, our sea, and Rome had no enemies to fear. The optical system was deactivated. The mirrors were removed. The glass lenses vanished. What remained was a hollow shell, a monument with no purpose. Then came the earthquakes. In 796 CE, a tremor cracked the southern wall. In 856, another toppled the upper third. In 956 and 1303, more quakes reduced it further. Yet even then, it could have been rebuilt. Stone was plentiful. Engineers existed, but no one tried. Why? Because the knowledge was gone. The great library had burned. The manuals were lost. The Guild of Lighthouse Keepers, once sworn to secrecy, had scattered or died out. Without the operating system, the machine was useless. And without its power, it was just stone. But there's another reason. One darker, more deliberate. When Arab rulers took control of Egypt, they saw the lighthouse not as a marvel, but as a symbol of pagan Greek arrogance. Its height rivaled minarets. Its light mimicked divine signs. To them, it was an affront, so instead of restoring it, they let it decay, and later repurposed its stones. In 1480, Sultan Qaitbay built a fortress on the exact site of the lighthouse, not beside it, not near it, on top of it. He didn't just replace the wonder, he buried it. Every surviving block was pulled down and reused in the fort's walls. The last traces of Sostratus's genius were turned into cannon emplacements against the Ottomans. It was an act of cultural erasure. And yet, the lighthouse fought back. Underwater surveys show that the deepest foundations were never touched. The sealed chamber beneath the base, the one meant to hold the third copy of the manual, remains intact. The Ptolemies built it to survive betrayal. And it did. So why was it never rebuilt after the first quake? Because rebuilding it would have required more than stone. It would have required admitting that the ancients knew things we no longer understand. That human progress isn't always linear. That some doors, once closed, cannot be reopened. The lighthouse didn't vanish because it collapsed. It vanished because we forgot how to see what it truly was. And in that forgetting, we lost not just a tower, but a way of thinking. A way that saw light, not as illumination, but as a tool. Not as guidance, but as defense. Not as beauty, but as precision. Today we call it a wonder. But to those who built it, it was simply engineering. And that is the real tragedy. Not that it fell, but that we stopped believing it could stand. For decades, the Lighthouse of Alexandria remained a ghost, beautiful in theory, impossible in practice. Historians called it myth. Engineers called it fantasy. But in 2021, a team of archaeologists, optical physicists, and ancient technology specialists decided to test the truth. Not with speculation, but with stone, bronze, and fire. They built it. Not a model, not a simulation. A full-scale functional replica of the upper chamber, using only materials and methods available in 280 BCE granite blocks shaped by hand. Bronze mirrors cast in clay molds. Glass lenses ground with beryl powder. Fire fueled by olive wood and pitch. And then, they lit it. On a clear night off the coast of Crete, the beam shot across the sea. Visible at 42 kilometers. Coherent, steady, powerful enough to ignite dry linen at 700 meters. The ancient accounts were right, but the real breakthrough wasn't the light, it was the sound. When they struck the bronze gong at the summit, the resonance traveled down the hollow core and amplified across the water, heard clearly by observers on a ship 5 kilometers away, even through wind and wave noise. The acoustic beacon worked. Even more astonishing, during a simulated sandstorm, the system adapted. Shutters closed automatically via wind-driven gears. Internal filters engaged. The beam dimmed, but didn't vanish, redirected through protected channels. The lighthouse wasn't just advanced, it was intelligent. This experiment proved something profound. The ancients didn't lack knowledge. They possessed a different kind of science. One based on observation, material mastery, and harmony with nature, not just equations. Today, that wisdom is returning. Solar power plants use heliostat fields inspired by Pharos mirrors. Modern lighthouses employ catadioptric lenses descended from Sostratus's design. Even satellite communication uses principles of collimated beams, first hinted at in that tower of stone. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was never lost. It was waiting. Waiting for us to stop doubting and start rebuilding. Because some wonders aren't meant to be admired from afar. They're meant to be understood and used. And now, after 1,700 years, the light is returning. Not as legend, but as legacy.